Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vegas Legal Magazine podcast. I'm Mark Fierro with Fierro Communications and Tyler Morgan, publisher of Vegas Legal Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we have the story of a husband and wife, both practicing law over a decade of success and growth, and then their youngest child becomes ill. That child is Tommy, and with us today is Tommy's mother, Heather Harris, and as well as his father, Brian Harris. We're going to be hearing exactly about that heartbreaking series of events, how it played out, as well as the incredible opportunity of hope that has grown from it. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The beginning of this story, I think, is as frightening as anything from a parent's perspective, from a grandfather's perspective, as frightening as anything I've ever heard in my life. Tell us about how this first became evident.
Well, you're not wrong. When this first came up, we were a young family. Brian and I had a successful law practice. We'd been practicing law at that time. This is in 2012. So we'd been practicing law for about 11 years here in Las Vegas. We had an almost 5-year-old. We had Tommy, who had just turned 18 months. He was happy, healthy, hitting every mark you could imagine. Cutest little boy you could see ever. He had just had his 18-month well check. His pediatrician said he's perfect. They're literally, you couldn't see anything wrong from the outside. He looked amazing. And then 4 days after that well check appointment, he had this huge nosebleed. He woke up one morning with this odd cry, and I don't really know how else to describe it. It was just unusual. He was always a pretty quiet kid, and he just had this weird cry, and we went in there, and he had this huge gushing nosebleed. And so I thought, okay, well, let's get that handled. And I thought maybe he was just scared because, this has never happened before. And I thought, this is just odd. I'm going to take him in and get him checked out. He had ear tubes put in a couple of weeks before, and I just wanted to make sure there was nothing weird going on. And the doctor said, no, everything's fine. It's just dry air. And he just kind of said, no, it's no big deal. He acted like it's nothing. So I said, okay, well, so we took him home and kind of continued watching, and the nosebleed never really fully went away. It just kind of kept coming back a little bit. Not a bunch, just a little. So I kept taking him back. And the doctor acted like I was crazy. And I'm just like, look, I'm not crazy, and I'm really not wanting to be here right now, but there's something wrong with my kid. And I thought at the time maybe he had allergies or something like that. You don't think it's going to be the worst thing. Nobody ever does, I don't think. No parent has ever gone into parenthood imagining that it's going to be your child that is going to be diagnosed with something terrifyingly scary. And we certainly weren't prepared for this. So we get to another specialist, and that specialist thankfully listened to me, at least, did some tests. Nothing really came back. Everything was inconclusive. And then they did a quick CT scan just to see, making sure. He was really nonchalant about it and just said, let's just make sure there's nothing, else we're missing. And it revealed a very sizable tumor in Tommy's skull. And it was incredibly close to his left eye. We couldn't tell if it had impacted his brain. And that moment that he told us that, I literally felt like I was falling. It was just the worst possible news you could imagine. And I would never wish that on any parent or any family. And Tommy was there with us, and I remember his face looking at me, just as a baby even, he was just stunned because here I am, his mom, really obviously kind of coming apart.
And he couldn't talk. So,
no, he was too young to tell us what was going on. If you have never had children, 18-month-old baby
it's too young for you to even tell him.
Mm-hmm. Right. You can't explain to them. He can't explain to me. We're trying to figure it out as we go, but we were very fortunate that we got to that doctor. We were very fortunate that we found this because thankfully he was able to get us to an amazing specialist in California at Rady Children's Hospital. On our older son's 5th birthday, Tommy was checked in there, and we began a whole process that started with a pretty invasive surgery just to do a biopsy and find out what he had. We had to wait for several days before we even figured out what the diagnosis was. Can't tell you what that's like, not knowing imagining what it could be and trying not to imagine what it is. And then they came back with the news that it is this rare disease I've never heard of. And the doctor tells us it's called Langerhans cell histiocytosis. And I remember saying, can you write that down? Because I've never heard of that. I mean, I've thought about all of these other things. What is it? And it's a cancer-like illness. It's a rare disease. It's treated in the same way as a lot of certain types of leukemia. And because of the location where it was inoperable. It would have caused more potential harm than potentially fixing the problem if we had tried to operate. So they treated it with chemotherapy, steroids, a bunch of other medications, and Tommy went through that for a year, and a special diet. It was a lot. And thankfully, though, the treatment worked. I mean, that was the amazing thing. And it was slowly but surely. And then you still have those fears that, it can come back. And they tell you this, that, especially for the first 2 years after treatment, it has a high risk of coming back. But thankfully, it never did come back with him.
Part of the problem, too, is every time they'd have to do a diagnostic test, they'd have to put him out because he
Huge
would
risk.
move. He would move and stuff like that. So
Right.
I think he's...
A lot of anesthesia, a lot of needles, a lot of
A lot of everything that you're
IVs,
scared of.
a lot of
It's tough.
things. Yeah. I mean, just so much time in hospitals and clinics, and just
He had a
when
special port.
normally, you would be at, a music class, or, doing swim lessons, or
Just being a
going to
parent.
the park, or, thinking about where your kid's going to go to preschool. I mean, we were basically keeping him isolated as much as we could because he was immunocompromised, and if his counts got lower than they were at a couple of different points, he wouldn't even be able to get treatment, which then you fear, okay, then the tumor's going to come back, the treatment's not going to work, trying to convince him to take medications multiple times a day that taste terrible. That was awful, and there was very little guidance on that at that time. I've heard more about it since then, but I remember asking everybody I knew, how do you do this? How do you get a baby to take this medication? I mean, he keeps throwing up, he keeps spitting it out, what am I supposed to just hold him down and force it in? I mean, that can't do that to him 5 times a day. This isn't going to work.
Yep.
So you
One of the
figure it out, though.
One of the things that came across my mind when I was reading the story and everything was, while all this is going on, you're in the hospital. It's, both of you are the parents, but at the same time, you're both partners in a law firm.
Yeah.
So your primary focus is obviously on your child, but you still have another child you have to take care of.
Yes.
And then you still have to earn a living.
Yep.
So how do you balance the whole devastation of dealing with a sick child, trying to maintain yourselves and your composure to be a parent to the other child, and then keep an office running so that you can still put food on the table and pay the bills and keep things going? I mean, I think that's a real testament to the parents.
It's very challenging.
Tyler, I wish I could tell you, and honestly, as I look back on it now, I'm not sure that I even know the answer to that question. I know that Brian and I rarely ask for help with things. That's just sort of our nature, I guess. I don't really like asking for help. I sort of prefer to do things myself. Brian does too. And I mean, we have always enjoyed having our own practice, but I mean, there were times that we reached out for help. I mean, there were times that we're like, hey, we're out of town, we can't be at a certain hearing. We tapped, our friends who are lawyers and said, hey, can you fill in?
We
need you to.
Great staff.
We have great,
They've been with
amazing
us
staff
forever,
that, they went, above and beyond to move things around, shift things when they needed to. Thankfully, in today's age, unless you were appearing in court or having to appear at something else, there's a lot of things that you can do remotely. Brian basically picked up the reins. I give him a ton of credit for that because he picked up the reins almost completely at the office. I pretty much said, unless something is literally on fire, don't even ask me. Just don't. I basically just had to focus all of my time and energy on Tommy and Will and try to make sure that Will wasn't being lost in the mix. I asked my mom and my sister to come and stay with him while we were in San Diego for, indeterminate amounts of time, when we had to go back and forth to San Diego as time went on for testing and for additional doctor visits and checkups to see how things were going with his treatment. We would take Will with us, and we tried to turn it into a vacation almost, that, we would take help so that we could spend the time that we needed at the doctor without him. And then Will could be there and maybe go to the beach or do something fun and interesting. So it wasn't just about all of the stuff always about Tommy, because pretty much at that time everything was. And, it was like, well, no, we can't go on a trip. No, we're not going on a plane. No, we didn't fly anywhere for years because of, the risk of infection and the concern that he could contract something that would be problematic.
We're talking about this, and you've laid it out, and it's only taken a couple of minutes. But the reality of it is, this is years, and it's years of not knowing for a long, long time. Months pass, and you don't know if you've lost ground or gained ground. What would you say to the parents of a child similarly situated right now? How do you hold on?
It is so hard to. It is a difficult skill to master, and I don't know that I've particularly mastered it, but I think I've become a lot better at it. And this is something that I learned from one of our initial doctors. In fact, that amazing physician that we went to first at Rady Children's, who did the initial biopsy surgery, because I was losing it at that moment. There were so many possibilities what this could be, and I couldn't help but think about all of the things that it could be. And he said, you're going to have to stop doing that. And I know it's hard, but right now you've got to imagine you are in a tree, okay? And you are on one branch, or even just like barely off the trunk. You're just on one branch of this tree. And there's, dozens of other branches, maybe hundreds of other branches that this can go down. And you need to reserve your energy, because you are going to have a long road ahead of you. This isn't going to be something that's, quick, whatever it is. This is a marathon, and you have to know that you're going to have to be there for him and your family. And if you spend all of your time and energy going down every one of those branches, you're never going to sleep, you're never going to eat, you're never going to be able to function. You can't function in real life. So stay on the branch you're on. Don't go down those other branches. Stay where you are until we have more facts. And base your decisions about what you're going to think about on the facts as we have them. Don't think about what maybe could happen, the possibilities, because you just don't know. And there's no way you can know, and you will waste your time and energy that is so needed elsewhere. And it was maybe one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. And I've remembered that. I've used it so many times in so many instances since then. And I would say, to any parent who is struggling through, whether it be a significant illness or a minor illness, every illness when it comes to your child feels significant. And, I would say stay on the branch you're on and don't take that leap to all those other branches until you know the facts.
Time to get there. A friend of mine, Al Markey, good lawyer, is fond of saying, when you look back at life, I can't tell you how many times the worst things that could happen to you turn out to be among the best things that could happen to you. And you've changed a lot of kids' lives. You turned something horrible that could have been a very, very dark corner for everyone involved. You had a great outcome for starters.
Thankfully,
but you've turned it into something positive for countless kids. How did that come about?
So it came about actually as a complete surprise to us. You're going through these processes, and you get pamphlets and information, and people give you binders of things that you're kind of looking at, and you just go, okay, that doesn't really matter. I was so focused on what I needed to do for my child and my family. And I wasn't really focused on all of the extraneous things that I felt like, okay, that isn't something that is my concern. Make-A-Wish was one of those things that I think I had gotten some information on. Brian and I had supported Make-A-Wish in years prior to that, but more of just kind of like, someone's holding a fundraiser, we'll donate
community
some money.
Activism.
And, here you go, we're happy to contribute. But I didn't really give it a tremendous amount of thought, quite honestly. Similarly, I hadn't really given medical care for pediatric patients in Las Vegas a tremendous amount of thought. I had heard through other people that medical care for pediatric patients in Las Vegas was not fantastic. I had no idea what I was dealing with until we actually had a child with a serious illness that I was just, I mean, it was astonishing. I was like, wow, this is, I mean, and thankfully we have come a long way and we're continuing to get there. But at that time, oh my gosh, I mean, there wasn't even anybody in Las Vegas I could go to immediately to talk about this. There wasn't a person who could have even done the biopsy. It really is astonishing. So that's a whole nother topic. However, so we're sitting there one day at home, we're dealing with all the stuff we're dealing with, and we get a letter in the mail, and I'm like, what is this? Open it. And it's just a one-page sheet that says, Tommy's wish has been granted by Make-A-Wish. And I was like, that is a horrible joke. Why would somebody do that? And then I kind of went, wait, nobody would do that. Has he been granted a wish by Make-A-Wish? Like, has this really happened? What? How would that happen? I mean, we didn't fill out anything. We didn't sign up for anything. Well, come to find out, Tommy's one of his favorite nurses at his oncology clinic that he was at, I mean, he was in and out of for years, had nominated him to receive a wish through Make-A-Wish. And our journey with Make-A-Wish began. And we initially, Brian and I said, you know, this is really great. I mean, how kind and wonderful that they want to grant him a wish, but I mean, we can't accept this. And I mean, I will tell you that having been in a hospital so many times with him and in medical situations, whether it's hospital or clinic or whatever, there is no equalizing factor for a parent like having a sick child. I don't care what your national origin is. I don't care how rich you are, how poor you are. I mean, none of it matters. I mean, when you have you're a parent of a sick child, you are all the same. And it is just heartbreaking to see what some of these families go through. And we were so grateful that Tommy was doing well and he was responding to treatment. I mean, we're definitely not out of the woods yet at this point, but he was responding and was doing great. I mean, things were moving forward. We were doing well. And Brian and I had been fortunate that we were able to develop a successful law practice. We had enough things in place that we were able to keep it going through this whole process. And Brian did a great job of making that happen while I was out of pocket. And I just was like, how could we accept a wish in this situation when there's so many other kids that, you know, should do this? And, you know, we can take our kids on a trip. We can go and do something special. But they were so insistent, and they kept calling and kept calling, and they wanted to have this meeting. And so we said, okay, we'll have the meeting. But we went into it saying, we're turning it down. We're not going to do this. And our wish granter, June, was incredibly persistent. And she basically just said, you are completely misunderstanding the mission of Make-A-Wish. Make-A-Wish is not about how much money your parents have. It is not about a financial ability to go on a trip somewhere. This is about granting a child's one true wish. And we can do things that, quite honestly, you could never do. You can't pay for these things with money. You can't go out and buy a wish trip for your kid or a wish experience for your kid. And there's different kinds of wishes that you can't even imagine. And if you don't accept this for him, you are denying him this experience that he deserves to have after everything that he's been through. And basically, like, just made us feel like, okay, maybe we should rethink our decision. And we did decide ultimately, begrudgingly a little bit, like, okay, we will accept the wish. But once we are through with everything, and because at that point we were just like, we are going to get through this. He's going to get better. Everything's going to be okay eventually. We are going to give back. And so she said, well, we're not going to premise your wish on that or his wish on that. But, you know, if you want to give back at some point in the future, then that's great. We will talk about that then. But for now, let's talk about Tommy's wish. So Tommy's wish was to go to Disney World. We had never been to Disney World. we honestly went into it with like no expectation whatsoever. Brian likes to know a lot of details about everything. It doesn't matter
Tell me in
if,
advance.
oh my
What am I
gosh,
doing?
you have no idea. I mean, we can't go to dinner with people without him saying, okay, who's going to be there? Who's sitting next to who? What are we going to talk about? What are we going to order? Like, have you looked at the menu yet? I mean, he wants to know everything in advance. He doesn't like surprises at all. So when we went on this wish trip, he kept asking me things like, so tell me about what's going to happen. And I'm like, I know exactly as much about this as you do. I know we're being picked up. I know we have these shirts they asked us to wear. That's just the Make-A-Wish t-shirt. And Tommy had this little button. We had a special dinner at Tommy's favorite restaurant, which was Red Robin, which he still says is his favorite restaurant. But that's what he wanted. He wanted Red Robin. I think it's the unlimited baskets of fries. Pretty sure that might be what it is.
with
If you've
Tommy.
seen Tommy lately,
Yeah.
surprise.
He does like the fries. But they showed up with tons of presents and suitcases for both of the boys filled with all kinds of things that they would like. And, you know, you're going on your wish and you're going to Disney World. And part of the reason he wanted to go to Disney World is that they have an animal kingdom there, which is different. They don't have it at Disneyland, which he had been to. And Animal Kingdom is actually really cool. I mean, I'd never
I'm from
been there.
Florida, so I used to be an annual pass holder. So
Oh.
Animal Kingdom, I was there. She's
Like when it
one summer I
opened
was
or
there like
whatever?
every like 3 weeks. Yeah.
Really? I mean, I had never been to it. I had no idea what to expect. So Disney World is gigantic. It's huge. I mean, it's
an
so
entire
much
city.
bigger than Disneyland. I mean, I knew it was a big place, but I really didn't get how big it was. It's enormous. It's a lot. But everywhere we went, Brian's like, well, what are we doing? How is this working? And I'm like, I don't know. They're picking
all
us
worked
up in a
out. It all
limo
worked out.
and we're going on a plane and then we have a car and then we go to this place called Give Kids the World. And he's like, well, what is Give Kids the World? I'm like, I don't know. Like, just get in the car and go. Like, stop talking to me about this. This is what the paper says. So we go to Give Kids the World and it is an absolutely amazing place. I mean, it was, I think, just as exciting to the boys and us as actually being at Disney World was. You can only stay there if you are on a wish trip
Oh, wow.
or something similar to it. There's a couple of international organizations that do similar kinds of wish granting, but
Just to think that there are people in this world, and that was their whole dream, their whole reason for being is to help little kids who are sick.
yeah. I know people that go there they get a month vacation every year from their job and that's where they go. That's what they do. They go there and work as a volunteer at Give Kids the World because it is, I mean, I have to tell you, if you ever want to be inspired, visit this place. It is absolutely inspiring. Every family there is experiencing their wish. Every kid there is so happy. They are all smiling. I don't care what stage of the journey they're in. There were some kids, sadly, who you could tell were close to the end. And there were some kids who are running with their I am 1 year cancer-free t-shirt on.
No.
And they have an ice cream shop that opens at 7 a.m. Kids are eating ice cream for breakfast. I think that was also one of the kids' favorite parts of the trip.
And
They
mine.
have pizza. They have every kid meets Santa, which sadly, I mean, it sounds kind of odd, but I mean, when you think about it, there are some kids that are not going to make it to Christmas.
To next Christmas.
And so they're getting to meet Santa, have a picture with him. They get a present from Santa. There's parties every single day. There
And
is
for
a
this moment,
cool-
like each kid is able to just put everything behind them.
Everything.
For the moment.
They
and just
are-
live in the present.
They
That's
are
great.
so incredibly happy. I mean, there's just so much delight and so much joy. And every child is experiencing something different, but they're all experiencing the same delight and joy. And it is just truly, I mean, I hate to overuse this word magical, but it is a magical experience. And it is so difficult to really try to convey that. And I was very skeptical. I really wasn't expecting this. I thought it was going to be, you know, this is going to be a fun trip and Tommy's going to like it and Will's going to like it and it'll be great and we'll enjoy it and it'll be a nice family time. I was really, really blown away at how we were so touched. I can't tell you how many times I cried while we were on this trip. Every day, at least.
Well, the families, I gotta
mean-
imagine that the families there are just in such need of that at the moment.
Well, yes.
To break away from
'Cause
the
at
thought of
that
what they're
moment,
dealing with
no
with their
different
child.
than anybody else. You know?
No.
They're among a bunch of sick kids, but at that moment they're no different than
And they get to
anybody else.
finally have a nice, fun family
They're-
time with their child and see their child
It
happy.
is.
Yeah.
It is seeing your child who you have had to go through some of the most horrific things, the darkest things. Sometimes you see a light. Some of these families are not seeing a light, but this is a light. This is something. This is a point of light in all of their lives. That is, whether it's, a child that is ultimately going to recover, and it'll be an amazing memory that this family has that is like nobody will ever forget. I mean, Tommy was 4 when he went on his trip, and none of us will ever forget it, including Tommy. He still asks when we get to go back. Or, in some situations, people who have wish experiences, it is a moment that their family will look back on as one of the happiest moments that, you have as an amazing memory for, your child's life. And it's, that is the difficult part. That is hard. And
Excuse me, it was when we got back that we decided to dedicate ourselves to Make-A-Wish and
yeah,
to move it forward and to be a part of
to
it.
wish it forward.
Wish
yeah.
it forward.
So
You guys have done a tremendous job. Why don't you talk about Tommy today and the whole,
Sure.
you guys have really embraced at least from the legal and medical community that I see. I mean, this Saturday we're going to have so many people out
we're
there.
going to have a lot of people
And I know
out
I
there
get
from
to
the legal
see-
medical community.
And I see so many people I know that come out to support you guys. So
Yeah.
why don't you talk about how you got into that? And
So, after we came back from our wish trip, even though we said, yes, we're definitely going to give back, we didn't immediately get involved because we did have, still some medical care. We still had some things that we were working on with Tommy. But I came to be in touch with the CEO for Make-A-Wish, Caroline Sioka, and we kind of got together, and she wanted to follow up, see how things were going, how are things with us, what's going on with our family. And she said, we've got a spot open on our board, and we don't have a single Wish family representative. And at the time, they didn't have any lawyers on the board, or maybe they had one lawyer on the board, but they didn't have our kind of lawyer on the board. So Brian and I practice plaintiff's injury law. So she said, would you be even remotely interested in doing this? And I was like, yes, I would be interested in doing this. This would be fantastic. I would love to make this happen for other people. I would love to bring, these wishes to other kids. And so I joined the board, and shortly after I joined the board, I realized this Walk for Wishes is coming up, which I had heard of, didn't really know a lot about, but all the board members were kind of participating in. So she said, hey, I know it's kind of last minute, but do you want to put together a team? So I said, sure, I'll put together a team. We'll do Team Tommy. So I just threw it out to a few friends. My friend Seth Stokes, who's a really amazing guy and does a lot of really awesome philanthropy things with us. And then, people like Tyler, who's dialed in with the legal community as well. And a lot of our friends who are lawyers, friends who are doctors, just people who are really good at wanting to give back, especially to an organization that really impacts our local community, impacts local kids. And so we started Team Tommy, and the first year, in about a week, I think we raised maybe a little over $10,000, which was pretty amazing. I mean, for very quickly. And I was just sort of floored at how quickly people mobilized and how quickly people said, yes, I want to be involved in this. That was in 2017. And so every year since then, Team Tommy has continued to grow, and we've continued to fundraise, and we continue to get more and different people involved. And every year I have people that have said, oh man, I just heard about this. We can't do it this year, but next year I'm in. And then every year it has continued to grow and grow and grow. So this coming Saturday, we're going to be the 4th year in a row that we've got a Team Tommy at the Walk for Wishes. The Walk for Wishes keeps growing. It's at Town Square this Saturday morning, and we're going to have the team with the bright yellow t-shirts, and they say Team Tommy, wishing it forward. Tommy came up with the slogan this year himself, actually, which he's very proud of. So, your wish is on the way.
Nah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Life is so very precious, and it's wonderful that you've been able to take something so devastating and turn it into something so very positive for other people that you've never even met.
Thank you, and I am grateful that we are in a position to be able to do that. I really am. I find that grateful is a word that I come back to a lot. And at a board retreat a couple of years ago, we were asked to pick a word that is the word that you feel most resonates with your position on the board. And grateful is the word that I couldn't think of another word that I felt more. And I'm grateful for Tommy's health. I'm grateful for our ability to be able to be in a position to give back, to be able to mobilize like this, to be, blessed with such amazing friends and colleagues that want to be involved, want to be engaged. I mean, we have some friends who have donated tens of thousands of dollars over the last few years to Team Tommy. In fact, just today, actually, I presented another $10,000 check from the Eglett Adams law firm. This is the third year in a row they've done that for Team Tommy. I know.
Bob.
I mean, they're very generous, very kind friends. And I mean, they don't even, I asked them if they wanted to be involved, and they said, you know what, this is exactly the kind of thing that we love to be involved in. And, the fact that we have people like that and many others. Rachel's Kitchen is doing a whole fundraiser for Team Tommy. They've done it before. This year, they're doing it at every single Rachel's Kitchen. They're doing it online. That's running through tomorrow, and there is a special Team Tommy menu that they've created. So anytime you order something, because these are actually all of Tommy's favorite things on the Rachel's Kitchen
Fries
menu.
are included in there somewhere, right?
Actually, they're not. No, they're not.
Oh, that because Rachel's
do you know
Kitchen
what?
doesn't do fries.
No, they do. But what's funny is that he actually really loves the chopped salad. He loves the chopped salad. He eats this for breakfast sometimes. So it's chopped salad, a smoothie, and all the different pancakes. So
That's
if
great.
you order something from the Team Tommy menu, they're doing a donation from Rachel's Kitchen. We had a really generous donation from Wynn Resorts recently. We have another charity that made a generous donation and is getting involved with their animal adoption organization. They're going to actually be at the walk, and they have a tent under the Wish to Have area with some dogs that are up for adoption. So
I'm guessing if we go to Make-A-Wish that there's going to be some link to the local so that people can find out more or make a donation too.
yes. So if you go to Make-A-Wish of Southern Nevada, and I can actually give you a direct link to Team Tommy if you'd like. But if you go to Make-A-Wish of Southern Nevada, you'll see there's a little square that says the Walk for Wishes. And if you click on that, it definitely will take you to general information about the Walk for Wishes. But if you want to get to Team Tommy, I can give you a direct link.
Let's hear it. What is the direct link?
Oh, it's complicated. I have to send it to you.
We'll embed
You'll get
it
there.
in the when we upload the video.
There you
Yeah,
go.
so
our
I'll make
Facebook,
sure
so.
I'll make sure that it gets to you guys though.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really do.
Thanks for coming
It's a
in.
great story. It's a great story with what you took something so devastated and turned into something so very, very positive.
Well, thank you. It is really great to be able to do something for our community, and I have to say, as a board member and for Make-A-Wish now, and a member of our community in general, I have the great benefit of seeing the end results of this fundraising, the end results of what we do, because these kids whose wishes are granted, you've really never seen anything like it. And if you have the opportunity to come to the Walk for Wishes, for those of us who've not experienced an actual wish, this is probably as close as you can come to really experiencing what it's like to be around that kind of joy, because these wish kids who are there, I mean, they just exude it. And there's some kids who are there who are waiting for their wish to be granted, and they know it's coming, and this walk and this fundraising is what's going to make it happen.
It's wonderful.
That's great.
And with that, we call it a day. Las Vegas Legal Magazine podcast. I want to sincerely thank both Brian and Heather Harris, founders of Team Tommy. Tyler Morgan, publisher of Vegas Legal Magazine. Remember to like and share the Vegas Legal Magazine podcast on Facebook. You can also catch us on YouTube, iTunes, or Stitcher. And for all of you out there with a story idea, or an axe to grind, get a hold of Vegas Legal, the leading magazine in the Southern Nevada legal market. You can call Tyler Morgan at
702-222-3476.
reach out. Tell us. Tell your friends. Have a good one. We're out of here.